Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of October 27th through November 2nd of 2025. All right, so we're halfway between the new moon and full moon for the month, which means we're in the first quarter moon here this week. So it will be an action-oriented week most likely, and one where a lot of things are starting to manifest, especially in the context of the new moon, which started last week around Tuesday. So thinking about Tuesday, what were some of the new intentions, maybe new things that were being planted? This could be a very important week for moving those things forward. And again, perhaps seeing a lot of these things starting to manifest. So we do have quite a few aspects here this week. We've got Mars in aspect, both with Jupiter and Saturn, part of this grand trine between these two. So a very supportive element here, I think, for the assertive side, the initiating side, the action-driven side, which really corresponds great with the first quarter. And Mercury in aspect as well. Mercury will be going into deep Scorpio, though, here this later part of the week. So our mind's going into the underworld, into the deeper world, which can be great for deep stuff. And this will be where Mercury goes retrograde here quite soon. But Mercury also in aspect quite supportive, though, trining up to Neptune, maybe a bit of a receptive or intuitive or creative mind available. Mercury opposite Uranus a bit, maybe needing to change things up a little bit this week could be helpful as well. And then the week does end with Venus squaring up to Jupiter, which can be perhaps some opportunities over the weekend, maybe enjoying some things over the weekend, maybe some relationship stuff being quite constructive or can be quite constructive as well. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here's the chart for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, October 27th. And as you can see here, we are using the uneven size of the constellations, the actual sizes of the constellations as we see them in the sky. This is very different from mainstream astrology. So if you are new to this channel, definitely check out that link down below for more information. And for all of you noticing here that we are using a different software, we have finally released True Sky. It is a fully online, accessible by any device software that we just created here at MTZ. Super easy to use. You can just click on some planets and they give you the interpretations. You can click on the aspectarian. You can click on the aspects. Basically everything that I'm doing for you here in the weekly, you could just do by pulling up the daily chart here and taking a click and talking, and reading about some of the stuff. It's also got transits, graphs, synastry, compatibility, solar returns, lunar returns, all kinds of stuff here. So it can be as easy as point and click, which anyone can use. Getting astrological information is extremely easy with this, but even professional astrologers will find it quite helpful. So it's called True Sky. It's available down in the description down below. There's a link for it. There's a free version and also a paid version. So test out the free version at least, and then if you want the full features, you can try out the paid. But definitely check it out. It's also a great way of supporting MTZ by installing and using this software. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at what we've got. So first, let's do a recap. Where is everything currently in the sky? So this is the snapshot here for Monday, October 27th. So we've got the sun finishing up Virgo. Okay, this is where we've had this whole lunar cycle. We did just have that new moon last Tuesday, and that was really the new beginning to the month. Okay, so now coming into this week, we are starting to build some momentum. We're starting to get into, like I said, what will really be a action-oriented week and really things starting to manifest. So definitely Virgo season. This is still about personal development, improvement, work, service, basically getting into the details of things. Okay, so that's a great way of working with the current energy. Venus is here as well, so enjoying or connecting to this improvement-oriented world. Also in our relationships can be great with that intention. And Libra is quite activated too. So Libra is about balance and fairness and also relationships in many ways. So Mercury and Mars are here. Mercury finishing up. We'll enter into Scorpio on Thursday, but definitely very strong, especially with Mars here. So wanting to do the right thing, wanting to bring things back into balance, wanting to even out the scales, if you will, both in our personal life, bringing things back into order, back into balance. But again, very interpersonally as well can be great, such as finding mutual ground with existing relationships, maybe doing some contracts, some agreements, some business, some coming to middle ground with others, and relational stuff, both personally and professionally, can be a great area of putting in energy at the moment. So that's what we have in terms of the placements, mainly in terms of the Virgo and the Libra there. But starting with Monday here, the moon will be in Sagittarius on Monday the 27th and also Tuesday the 28th. So Sagittarius is all about expanding our horizons. Could be a good couple days of the week here for letting our minds wander a bit, maybe philosophy, spirituality, astrology, this kind of more abstract stuff, maybe getting a bit adventurous as well. A bit of that free-spirited energy can also be fantastic. Now, Monday and Tuesday, we also have that activated by Jupiter. So Mars will be trining up to Jupiter. Like I said, Mars is in good aspect this week. Mars is the planet of our motivations, our drive, our confidence. And this can actually be very strong these first couple of days. So Mars, assertive, trining up to expansive, Sagittarian Jupiter gives us that sense of, again, adventure and buoyancy that can be channeled. And even with these easy aspects, we want to make sure that we're doing it constructively. So finding those healthy ways of incorporating some of that fire between both these fire planets and where the moon will be in the fire sign of Sagittarius. Now, once we do get to the Wednesday time, that will be the first quarter moon. That's the moon leaving Sagittarius, going into Capricorn. And so really challenging ourselves. This could be where we start to come to our first challenges of the lunar month that again would have started about a week ago, but challenging ourselves, as I always say, with the first quarter. Very constructive time. This is when things actually happen. This is when things manifest. And so utilizing it in that way is absolutely great. And of course, like I said, there's a lot of aspects this week. So we do have a lot of support actually from the planets to do that. So continuing with that Mars theme, Mars is also trining Saturn this early part of the week, so specifically around Wednesday. So again, that drive and that motivation can be quite supported. But in this case, maybe feeling quite grounded, maybe feeling quite patient, quite persevering, quite willing to take on long-term obstacles or goals. Great way of, again, moving that energy forward and seeing the support there is fantastic. Mercury, like I said, is quite active this week too. And in this case, on Wednesday, trining up to watery Neptune. So Mercury is the planet of our minds and our communications, and having a nice support up to Neptune gives us perhaps a bit of imagination, maybe strong intuition, a willingness to maybe flow with things a little bit in that day-to-day routine. So in general, anything that is about productive stuff with the Mars-Saturn, but also maybe spiritual stuff or creative stuff can be quite good here this Wednesday time period. But again, fundamentally an action phase, and Mercury will be opposite up to Uranus as well. So good to maybe think outside the box. There's probably going to be a part of us that really wants to change things up. Uranus, especially in opposition, can create a lot of wanting to break free kind of energy in opposition, sometimes in relationships, as it sort of mirrors us. So listening to that part or that experience that wants change, or the relational situation that calls for some change, and again, incorporating it constructively. I personally find oppositions to be easier to work with. In general, I think they're more neutral in nature, but they do require that sense of balance. So balanced freedom, balanced change, balanced getting outside of our comfort zone a little bit. And in this way, we can notice some very, I think, positive things with our routines changing, maybe some of those relational things, maybe some of that communication as well there. But all in all, Wednesday looks quite supported. Now, the moon will be in Capricorn both Wednesday and Thursday. And so this middle part of the week, patience, discipline, there is that theme. The moon here doesn't really pull on it, on either it being more challenging or more easy, but the trine to Saturn, I think, is going to make it generally a little bit easier there. But all in all, challenging yourself to move things forward. Again, that's really what we're called to do in this lunar cycle in terms of the Virgo Earth energy, improvement, refinement. Here, maybe just seeing the long road, seeing the big picture, taking things one step at a time can just be great this middle part of the week. Now, Thursday, like I said, Mercury does go into deep Scorpio. And so our minds are going into the underworld from Thursday onwards. Could be really good for research, deep diving, uncovering deep things, and communicating this as well. Now, this is going to be where Mercury is going to go retrograde. So let's, treat this as a good experimentation, as we will be going back over this stuff here in the coming weeks. But being willing to dive deep, communicate deeply, get to the core of things, the truth of things, can be a great way of starting to get into that energy here this second half. So that's the middle part. A lot going on astrologically. Nice to see that Mercury will be sextiling Pluto. Nothing major, but there is support from the deeper world as well, while Mercury transitions into the underworld there. Okay, now once we do get into the weekend, Friday and Saturday, the moon will be in Aquarius. And so this can speak to innovative energy, challenging the status quo, and sometimes collective stuff. So good time to think about the future maybe. Think about your visions and maybe connect to things greater than yourself, whether it's friends or community or anything like that. So a bit of that progressive energy of Aquarius there. That's Friday and Saturday. Now, once we move into Sunday, we do have the Pisces energy, okay? But by this point, we're starting to build a little bit more momentum in the lunar cycle. Like I said, the main inflection or action point is Wednesday. So once we do get to the weekend here, we're noticing a little bit more momentum. But in this case with Pisces, Sunday, really, a good day here for flowing with things a little bit, connecting to our inner world, a little bit of maybe spirituality, connecting to our intuition, right? Having a little more peace in our life. And this is important because this is the opposite energy to Virgo. And so even though, we're going to be having the full moon here in a few days, it's good to start to get into this, in this case, Pisces sort of energy now. So a little bit into this receptive, intuitive, flowing energy on Sunday. Sunday could be perhaps buoyant as well. We're talking about early in the week about some of this buoyancy going on. So here it could be maybe feeling a bit free-spirited because Venus will be squaring up to Jupiter. So there could be maybe some things that we're wanting to expand with, something we're thinking open-minded about. It could be something we're enjoying. We do want to probably make sure we're keeping things grounded with some of the enjoyments and maybe some of the connections that we're feeling quite buoyant about. But if it is constructive, if it is intentional, it can be great, a good time to experience some, bigger picture, expansive things in a grounded and constructive way. Okay? So that's the week in a nutshell. Put simply is that it's a week of action. It's a week of manifestation. And this is going to be centered around the Wednesday time when we do enter into that first quarter moon between the sun and the moon, the square there between the two. All in all, the aspects are leaning more towards the easier side here, but of course it all depends on our personal charts and really how we utilize the energy. But it is certainly available to be supported. We have Mars in good aspect, which is that drive and assertive energy, both feeling the buoyancy and the structure. Got a little more buoyancy earlier in the week, a little bit more structure, and limitations to work within the middle part of the week. But both are very good. Jupiter and Saturn energy is very good for manifestation in general. Jupiter, the expansive, is about belief. Believe it, it becomes true. That's important, but equally important is the work, is the patience, is the perseverance. And so we definitely have a mixed bag there in terms of those energies. Mercury is quite active, so it could actually be a good week for intuitive understanding, maybe some things that can be developed with communication or our everyday lives a bit. But that goes into the deeper world once we go to Thursday onwards. Our minds going into the deeper world, our communications going into the deeper world. So really good to start to utilize that before we have that retrograde with Mercury coming up. And then, like I said, this one aspect on Sunday, maybe connecting to the ethers a bit with Pisces. But yeah, seeing that there are opportunities, there's things to be buoyant about. Maybe they do require a little bit of structure or a little bit of groundedness just to make sure that we're not overindulging or going too far with some of these possibilities there on Sunday. All right, everyone. So that's the week in a nutshell. Have a great week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for the live stream. We have Anna Maria who goes live every Sunday here at 12:15 p.m. Eastern time. You can also find a link down below for that as well. And again, if you haven't yet tested out True Sky, there's a link down below. Do check it out. There's a free version and paid version. So at the very least, go see if it works for you. But have a great week, everyone. And I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.